Hi, and welcome to the 79th podcast of Keen Minds, where we're covering NBC's The Blacklist. We're in Season 6, Episode 17, Lady Luck. I'm Jen, a.k.a. Takara Saeko.
And I am Tessa. And Lady Luck was number 69. The numbers are filling quickly.
They are. And Tessa's cracked it, supposedly. And so we'll see at the end if she's able to cheer and say that she was right.
Yeah, I'll post a big thing about what I've cracked. I want to wait until we get this season on the way, just because it's complex. And it's very time consuming. It doesn't look that difficult, but it is. It's time consuming, not difficult. Once you realize what they're doing, then it's very easy to do. How did you like this episode in general?
I did not. I've had my episodes in the last three seasons where I'm like, it was alright. Wasn't one of my favorites. This was actually on the bottom of I did not like this episode. Mm-hmm. Not because I really don't want to be mean to these writers, because this is not apparently their normal jam here. It looked like they're novelists, and being a novelist that's been trying to write scripts, I know how difficult the transition is. But no, I had a lot of issues with choices being made and a lot of issues with dialogue that just didn't fit. I have a whole list of notes to go through for this of stuff that I'm just sitting there going, what? Why was that a choice? And to be fair, the writers with the names on it, they may have been given instructions, they may have had things rewritten. There's never any telling exactly, the people with the names on the episode get, all the good and the bad credit for things, but overall, the episode hit on a lot of my pet peeves when it comes to episodic writing.
Yeah. I like the episode. I like a lot of things about the episode. I like the Blacklister. I like the performance of the actress playing the Blacklist. I like the concept of the Blacklister, especially because, as most things, it's not purely evil or purely good. It is an uncomfortable subject, and at the same time, they made it interesting. So that I liked.
Okay, you want to just jump right into the Blacklister, because I've got some thoughts on that one as well.
Okay.
So do you want to jump in and start with her?
Yeah, let's start with that. I liked the actress doing the job. She was so creepy. And this reminded me a bit of the travel agency, in the sense that this wife revenging this kid, except that in this time, there was a traffic accident. It could have happened if the kid wanted to get a sandwich and he went to the convenience store. Just because he bought a lottery ticket that was a winner doesn't mean that, the kid would not have died. So that was the part that I guess it made her into a psychopath.
Crazy.
He was just waiting for something to revenge on the gambler husband. But it made and I liked that she was using that and keeping. There was so much stuff she was keeping the husband in the iron lung and surrounded by this horrendous pictures of the baby. Oh my God, it was so
and the cards, and it was a consistent reminder of what she felt like he had done to her.
Except that he couldn't see them. It was her. It was so bizarre. What did you think about the Blacklister?
The actress was great. I think she did a phenomenal job with what she was given. I was not. Listen, I mean, I come from I was raised Baptist, which is a denomination that tends to judge pretty heavily against gambling. So while my family was not like super anti-gambling, or my immediate family, I have extended family that like we would literally drive by, I don't know, a racehorse track. And I knew one family member was like, I hope it rains so they're incapable of gambling on those horses. And I just went, what? You know, like, so I have family that's very much like that just hates gambling and and that's what this felt like, was a vendetta against this sin that they wanted to drive a nail into. And I felt like they may, I mean, and don't get me wrong, people have issues with it. There are people that can go too far with anything, with gambling, with insert this here, you know, and you can take it too far, anything. But this felt like, and maybe just for what you just said, that, you know, the thing that keyed this woman off was not that, you know,
not that he gambled the house. It was that the son died, but the son died in a car accident.
Exactly. So, it felt very much like, for me, that it was coming at it from this, like, why?
She was a psychopath.
Why is this an issue?
Because she was a psychopath. She was just...
And she was, but it just...
She hated the husband, and at the end just took that.
And yeah, and I guess that's it, but it didn't feel... It didn't feel on par with one of our normal blacklisters. It didn't feel like a very formidable like, I have no idea. And I've had this before where I'm like, how did this person survive doing this long? You know, I've had that question many a time. But that's part.
Her scheme was perfect. Her scheme was great.
Yeah,
I mean, she would take one, pay the debt, and then have that one kill the previous one. I mean, it's an uncomfortable subject, and I am not particularly, I'm not religious at all. I do, you know, the gambling, the addictions in general are a problem that we see every day on the news. The opioids, and we had Wrestler with the opioids. We have Red with the opium. And we're constantly bombarded by this. And then in this episode, Red is so much against drugs, and he's said many times that he's against drugs. And it just gets into that very uncomfortable position where, like most addiction, some people consider it a flaw of character or a sin, if you will. And others consider, hey, they're addicts, they're incapable, there is something wrong with the brain that makes them be addicts. So this whole idea of a blacklister and the problem was one of those things that make me uncomfortable.
Yeah, it didn't make me uncomfortable. I just didn't like it. I mean, like, I wasn't feeling like, oh, this is making me think. This is making me address things that I don't want to think about. I just didn't like it. I wasn't entertained by it. I wasn't uncomfortable by it. I just was kind of bored by it.
Oh no, I wasn't bored by it. I actually like the idea, but I would have gone with this blacklister and this idea. I would have really made that what happened similar to what happened in the travel agency. The kid died because he was gambling.
Exactly.
They went and they beat him up or they shot him, and a bullet ricocheted into the kid.
Exactly. I mean, that could have changed so much more. Yeah.
Because it would have made it into a mother avenging what happened because it was a guilt. But the fact that it just made it like that woman was a psychopath. She was just looking for a reason to get back at the husband.
I mean, and it was just really twisted. I mean, I also wondered why. I mean, it's cool for aesthetics, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But I actually Googled iron lungs because as soon as I saw that, I went, people haven't used iron lungs in decades.
They
And it was
probably
at the polio height. That was
Yeah.
when they used them, but once the vaccinations started taking place regularly, people don't use iron lungs anymore. I think I saw that, like, I mean, it was somewhere in the single digits of iron lungs currently being used in America right now.
Yeah.
And so the fact that she, one, could get a hold of one, two, was able to keep it functioning, three was, I mean, like, why? It seems like it would be just as easy, because, I mean, he obviously wasn't dead. He was still getting the payments from it. It was still going to him. They were able to look all this up through the FBI. So why not just pay a nurse to come in and have a tracheotomy, to help him breathe?
Because it was more horrible.
I guess, but, I mean, you could have made it horrible other ways. That was just weird. I don't know.
It was weird.
That's
I
what I
wasn't
said,
bothered by that.
For aesthetics, oh wow, it's an iron lung. That catches your eye. I guess that's true, but from a practical sort of standpoint, that's just bizarre. I had a lot of problem with strange choices in here. There were a lot of really bizarre choices.
The one thing I gotta say that I really like about this Blacklister is the theme that it presented of a daughter thinking that one of her parents was dead, discovering that was alive, and taking over one of her parents' business. So that felt pretty much like, yep, there you go. I can see this happening. They're just setting up how Liz takes over Red.
I agree with that, but again, and maybe I'm just, like, really against this episode. I feel very negative right now, and I'm very sorry about that. But I felt like there was such a... I mean, and granted, we didn't know the daughter very well, but she was presented as an incredibly hard worker, that she was pulling double shifts, that she was taking on shifts. She had a son, single mom, relied on her mom, who she thought was a single mom that had raised her. All of this, and then she sounded genuinely horrified when Cooper was explaining everything to her, and then turned around and was like, "Hi, Dad, glad to meet you. I'm going to continue your torture method," And it's like, did she crack in there somewhere and I missed it? Or was she always a little bit like this? I mean, I guess it goes back to nature versus
DNA.
nurture. And yeah. But still, it felt a little bizarre to me. But maybe that's just on the heels of the entire episode. By that point, when we got to her, I felt like so many things were out of whack that it was just another one.
And how who do you want to do next? Listen, listen, not much to do this one.
Can I go into the dialogue? Because that was something that got me, and that's not going to really fit into any one person.
Okay, let's go with dialogue.
So the dialogue, that's not something I tend to focus on, because the dialogue always tends to be pretty well done. Mm-hmm. With dialogue, sometimes it's the dialogue itself, and sometimes it's the presentation from the actors. There's a lot that goes into it, and sometimes it's the director, the way the director, directed the actors. There's so much that goes into it. I tend to not harp on it, especially on the podcast. But I found the same issue in two different places with one of the actors that was just in this episode, and then with some lines that they wrote for Megan at the end. And so when the gambler husband, not the Blacklister's husband, but
Henry.
Say what?
Henry, the guy.
Henry, was that his name? Okay.
The Reddington guy.
The one that was working for Reddington. So when Liz and Russ went to the wife, she said no, he just had to extend his trip a few more days. She sounded like it, at tops he'd been gone maybe a week. He hadn't been gone that long. And when he called her, it was the way he said it, the words that he was using, and also
Like it being separated, and
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And so
like meet me in the park. Why in the
yeah,
park?
we need to meet. Oh, okay, well, come home. You know, it's like, I mean, those are some of the like clandestine sort of things that Tom would have said when Tom and Liz were at odds back in season 2. You know, we need to meet. You know, you can't just go to the house because guess what? You got kicked out. You know.
But it
Um,
seems like he was saying, no, 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 we're in here.
yeah, and so, and at the
Either there
time,
were scenes caught in the middle.
and that's possible, but at the time I was listening to it and I'm going, well, maybe he knows that the FBI is listening and he's just playing the part. But then he wasn't. It was just, in my
Well, they
opinion,
needed to move the action to the outdoors in order to have that shooting and not
yeah.
have it
And
inside the house.
that's fine too, but rearrange the dialogue.
Yeah, but you could have it like, hey, I got a picnic,
Yeah.
and
Hey,
how about meeting me in the park?
exactly. I want to take you out.
Yeah.
Let's go to that place you love. But then, so, you know, I kind of wrote that off. I put it back in the back of my mind. I said, okay, you know, maybe it was any number of things that I mean, there's been stiff dialogue before, any number of reasons why it could happen. And then we got along to Liz and Wrestler scene at the end, and those two have been with us since the pilot episode. They know what they're doing. And Liz was on her way out when Wrestler stopped her to tell her that he'd, you know, continued digging into Kat. And it would have been as simple as dropping the by the way and anyway, what was it? It was such, again, very strange choices, in my opinion, the way they had Liz approaching that whole conversation. It was, I understand that they needed her to tell him that they needed her to acknowledge, you know, that she was okay with it, you know, and that she was giving him a pass so that he could go, okay, and pretend that he wasn't doing anything. I get that. I understand that, not an issue. My issue was the stiffness that came with it, that it was, okay, we need her to say this. We don't really want to take a lot of time to figure out how she can say this organically, so just throw the lines in there, and there you go. Go for it, Megan. It was very stiff and not great. I don't know. But the dialogue really was weird this episode. And maybe things did get cut. Maybe that's the deal. You know, maybe they had to go back last second and do some rewrites or something like that.
I think what happens with you get the new writers, especially with writers that are not familiar and for which scripts are not their main medium, is that they're not familiar with the characters, so they don't get the voices really well. And also the dialogue in a novel and dialogue in a script are very different things, as dialogue in theater is different from dialogue in a movie, from dialogue in TV. Well, I mean, they're different media.
As someone that works in both mediums of novels and scripts, I can tell you, if you were writing that in a novel, you would have all the internal dialogue going on in between, which is, you know, might have made it run more smoothly. But you don't have that in scripts. And my question would be, if these two that wrote it, you know, the husband-wife duo that wrote this, even, and I get that, you know, that they're coming into it, while they may have seen every episode, they haven't been neck deep into it like some of the other writers have been. But why wouldn't the Johns have tweaked the wording on it? I mean, that's their job, is to make sure everything runs smoothly. And it just
so was what else did you have?
Those were the two big ones. Those are the ones that I made notes of. But it just...
It really irked you.
Yeah, it really did. Like, I mean, I've had dialogue bother me before, but I don't think I've ever been this bothered by it.
Well, I think you were bothered too because you just didn't like the Blacklister. I mean, the Blacklister had that lack of logic.
I didn't like the Blacklister. I didn't like the dialogue. And we can get into it when we get to Smokey, but I had some severe issues with Smokey that just do not, as of this point, don't make any sense to me.
I one of the things that I did like about this episode and the theme they chose is that gambling has come before. We have had instances in which Smokey came upon Red's radar because he had got into a gambling problem with those neo-Nazi. They were not neo-Nazis. They were white supremacists. They were drug dealers. That's what whatever they were was
bad guys.
Bad guys, but drug dealers, and now he had been laundering profits. Then we have the harbor master, Eugene Ames.
Yeah, he did have gambling.
He went up to Jersey City. He goes to Atlantic City never for more than a few days. Red uses a very similar story to that because the harbor master had the daughter. Red uses a very similar story to this when he's looking for Karakurt with a colicky baby mother. He said that he was a private investigator. He was looking for Karakurt. He said that Karakurt had a gambling problem and gambled away the daughter's college funds and this and that.
You also had the guy that the shipping guy from season 4 that was killed at the casino. Red sent him and the wife.
Yeah. But he didn't. Yeah, it was in the gambling thing, but he wasn't addicted or anything. But yes, it's a very good one. And
it's
Sir
still
Crispin
a callback.
Crandall, and Sir Crispin Crandall was also like, are you a betting man? Because if you were, you would know that now trumps then every time, that you don't bet, you bet on the future, you better bet on the now, on the present. So I like that came back into that, and it was the end of Smokey that has started with gambling and it ended with gambling. And gambling on Red getting killed, and getting executed, and not making it out of it with that. So that I like. There were things that I definitely liked. I had my issues with the way that this thing that they're depicting that Red is going down on a thing, and I had particularly a severe issue, and this is not about the writers. This is entirely just because it feels that they're pushing Red's direction much darker very quickly, and it's always about betrayal. Then he goes. I mean, this reminds me a little bit of Red's rampage when Ansel Garrick, the incursion, and the killing of that. And the other ones I didn't have a problem with, but I did have a problem with the medical emergency woman. Her job was just to remove the chip, and he killed her. And shame, such a pretty face, and you're a paramedic too. So that this felt that they were pushing Red so dark. And some of it felt okay, like Red on the plane, he felt like he's really going crazy. But I particularly found it interesting that they brought back Janet McNamara in Platt nonetheless.
I did like that. That's on my list of things I liked, that they gave a nod back to her. I just don't know why. I mean, I'm assuming there is a reason. I just don't know what it is yet.
For me, what it told me is Red now has a godlike complex. So if you play nice and you're like a good girl, like Janet McNamara that left, good things happen to those who do as Daddy Red says and leave.
Well, he's had that complex since day one. He's made the comment. He made the comment to Wrestler who went to AA. He said, I would have gone to AA if I believed in anything bigger than myself. And then he played this way with Liz and Tom for years. Oh yes, I understand this is your daughter, But I'm Raymond Reddington. You're going to listen to what I have to say rather than act like the parents that you are.
Mm.
I mean, he's had that godlike
Yeah,
complex for
but
as long as we've known him.
but they're really pushing it with this. And so good girl Janet has a great life because she listened to Daddy Red, and bad boy Smokey gets out of a plane midair because he was a bad boy that didn't listen to Red. And my thing is, have we ever know who was in charge while Red was in prison? Because it seems like
Dembe?
no, but Dembe is not in charge of operations. You never see Dembe. Dembe has a power of attorney to sign checks, but he was never involved in the actual crime stuff.
That's true.
He just takes care of Red. So was whoever was in charge, was it Smokey? Did Red ever say, you were not ever doing drugs? We're not ever doing drugs, period. I don't like drugs. We're not doing drugs. Or is it just that Red thinks that when he vaguely says something, people has to understand? So that is an interesting twist they're going there, because yes, we have had, as you said, this all the time, but they're pushing it dark.
Yeah, it's taking it another step further. I didn't necessarily like, I mean, I it's very clear that they wanted us to have the reaction that you are, to that understanding that this is a darker step, you know, that gut reaction of a beloved character has just died, Red has just killed him, and that Dembe thinks he went too far. We are also supposed to think he went too far. And I really have no love or hatred either way for Smokey. He has never been one of my favorites of Red's crew. I don't hate him. He's just, I've never been overly fond of him. And so, you know, it's not like when Tom died and, you know, I was beside myself and continue to be beside myself over, you know, the character's death. Or take Kate, for example, that I was always very fond of Kate. She's never been my favorite, but I've always been very fond of her. And that it took me a long time to come back from being upset with Red over how he handled that, which was a point where he went too far and we were supposed to know he went too far, et cetera, et cetera. And so I got the impression on Friday night's episode that we were supposed to have a similar reaction to what happened as we did when Red killed Kate, or when he shot Kate. Is probably the better way to put it. He tried to kill Kate. But I feel like they may have chosen the wrong character for that, and that goes back to my my continuous statement of I'm very confused over many of the decisions that were made for this episode. Choosing Smokey to, one, be the person, like the whole thing that they went through with, you know, the fact that he double-crossed him, that he was like, some of that made sense, but one, and I actually did a little write-up on this on a friend's post, because she was talking about it, and we were, so, hoping that they were not trying to make the point that it kind of came across as all carnies are horrible people. You know, you're a carny, you're a con man. I mean, that was kind of a little bit broad strokes there. But if that's the case, if that's the way we're going to go with it, why didn't they choose, what's her name? Hetty. Like, why choose Smokey and not Hetty? And Hetty's already had a history of double-crossing people. That's the reason Smokey and Hetty were at odds. So, I mean, and if we were trying to get a gut reaction from the fans, that understanding, and I am not by any stretch advocating that they should do this, but why not Glenn? We love Glenn. Everybody loves Glenn. I adore Glenn. Please don't kill Glenn.
So obviously it wasn't to make it into the favorite character.
But
this is not Kate number 2.
I think it was, though. That's the thing. I think that was the intention, and it fell short. And so I don't know. And that's the thing, is I felt like it fell short for that. And the other thing was they put him on par by throwing him out of the plane like that. And a friend of mine made this comment, and I kind of agree. Like, how does he keep throwing people out of planes without crashing the plane? Like, where is he throwing them out of? I guess out of the wheel well, possibly, but poor Dembele had to drag him down there for that, I guess. But anyway, like, they put him on par with the director. The director's the only person that he's thrown out of a plane like that, and so that's drawing a parallel there, and that didn't seem like it should have nearly that kind of weight. Like, he didn't put Liz in danger, and that's the thing. You're trying to draw a parallel to Kate, you're trying to draw a parallel to the director. Those two people, the thing, at least in Red's eyes, Red's point of view, those two people have that they put Liz in danger. Smokey did something that had nothing to do with Elizabeth. And so
what would you have done with him?
With Smokey?
Yeah. Had you been Red?
I don't know. I mean, even just, putting a bullet between his eyes, I mean, if he really felt like he needed to end it, for me, where it went over and beyond of it was throwing him out of the plane. Like, landing and killing him like he did with, what's his name?
Well, also he's a known associate, and now he left a body in a field linked to him, thrown from a plane. I mean, isn't he supposed to be like, if they find you? I mean, it seems like he just went in there and he's like, let me see, how many crimes can I commit?
Yeah, he really did. He's on a crime spree right now. Which, it's interesting because he's not even covering him up. And Anna McMahon made the comment, she said, if you commit any crimes and we catch you, I'm taking your entire task force down. Everybody's going to prison.
The part that was most interesting to me about this whole thing with this was that, to me, and that's where I take a departure of how deep they got Red into the darkness now. And I'm going to say, to me, it feels like it's not well done. It's that I felt that these murders that he did were to torture Dembe. Remember, Red said in season 1 or 2, you have to take, I know about torture, and with the Good Samaritan killer, he said, you have to tailor torture to the victim. Not everything is the same torture. And we've seen Red do this over and over. What a person is afraid of? To this very vain man, I'm going to take your teeth out. To Mato, who's not afraid of pain. It was, I'm going to put your body in a sealed cement box for eternity. And for a man like Dembe, physical torture would not be what makes him talk. I mean, we've seen it with Solomon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's the question. Here's the question I want to pose to you. Do you think that he knows that Dembe knows that it's Liz?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
I mean, that's the only way that comment to him at the end makes any sort of sense. Hang on, I'm about to sneeze. I can feel it. But that's the only way that it makes sense to me when he says, well, would you do would you say anything? Would you try to stop me? Because
another life is so.
How many people would in the criminal world are going to have Dembe's moral stance? Nobody.
So basically, what he's doing is torturing Dembe, and it just puts me into this belief, like, no, this is really weird, because I would have before said Red would not hurt Dembe. Yeah, maybe he won't kill Dembe, but this is hurting Dembe because Dembe is a moral man, and while Dembe has no problem, for example, using a gun to save somebody's life, or when they're shooting at him, Red already put Dembe in the position to get rid of the nurse, Marguerite Renard, and now he's basically killing people to see how long will it take for Dembe to take him. Or if not, I don't know that he knows his Liz, but I think he knows Dembe knows. So he may have surmised it is Liz. He's not an idiot. He saw Liz and he saw Jennifer working together because he was in an imbecile, and he knew what they were doing. They were digging into his past. So I'm not. I think this is like such a step forward all of a sudden for Red to be torturing Dembe.
Yeah, yeah. If he is doing that, which is really the only thing that makes sense with that last comment,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, it definitely does take it several steps darker. And I mean, because he raised Dembe. I mean,
Yeah.
we've pulled the parallel multiple times of Tom and the Major and Red and Dembe, and the fact that Dembe just got off a whole, while he had arguably a lot worse childhood,
Mm-hmm.
than Tom did as a kid. I mean, we don't know everything Tom's been through, but most likely had a worse childhood.
Yeah.
That he caught a break with Red finding him versus, Tom being found by the Major. And that it made Dembe the man. I mean, Red described him as an angry youth, they'd starved him, they'd beaten him, they'd left him for dead. And now, I mean, if this is what he's doing, then even when Red thought it was possible that Dembe had poisoned him,
He was looking for him, but
he wasn't going
he
to
didn't
hurt
harm
him.
the daughter.
Yeah. And so it's like something. Red has those moments, and it may go back to something. Maybe something snapped. Maybe something, he's had those moments before where he goes too far, and
He even acknowledged it to the judge.
yeah,
The mouth just gets in trouble.
yeah. Well, you need to go seek that therapy. You said you're gonna seek, Raymond. It's interesting though. I mean, it's not something I would have expected from him. Not something I would have predicted for him. And so there must be something else going on. I mean, maybe it's the medication he's on screwing with him. I mean, it's hard to say.
It's just excessive for what have happened.
Yeah.
And it seems like it hasn't been gradual. Yes, it takes us a theme that Red has done. Red does weird things. He has this God complex. They had him, Johnny Cash, so he's dispensing, truth and.
Yeah.
But they've done that before, but this is.
That's what I mean. Like it feels like he snapped, but I can't find a point where that would have happened. It should have been.
It's this episode.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, why? I'm with you, though. I'm right there with you. I'm very, very puzzled by it.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's consistent, and I know that he has to know it's Liz. Who could have known where he was, what he was wearing, and where he was going? Right?
Nobody. I mean, Liz and Dembe. And so if he thinks Dembe did it to him, I mean...
That speech at the plane about the dream of flying, man, it was so bad. And I know that he gave Smokey chances to come clean. But again, he was about to be executed. It was 3 months that he was in jail.
Yeah.
Because he said that those last 3 months have been horrible.
I mean, and I could see, like, I see what he did with the, the tax for underestimating him. That's part of Red. That's part of this never bet against Red. I get that. Like, I had no problem with him doing that. I thought that was very in character. But yeah, he was on death row. He literally was strapped to the chair. They were about to push the medication. Mm-hmm. And while you could say, well, you should never have used my resources even after my death, I get that. But I mean, it's
I would
to
have
throw him
beaten.
out of the plane is
Yeah,
excessive.
I would have, and also because throughout when Red was broke, he built this new fortune with on the back of Smokey.
Yep.
And sure, I'm sure he compensated it handsomely, but Smokey took a chance on working with him. He took a chance on Red. He stayed with him. And I mean, if I had been Red, I would have just either given him a beating or say, you know what, you're going to work for the next 2 years for half or a third of what you were getting or nothing. You're going to make this up to me. And I want to dismantle that thing. And in fact, why not use what he had with Smokey? Set everything up, leave it like that, and serve it is in a platter to the FBI as a blacklister. Everybody who was
Yeah,
involved in that
exactly.
meth distribution. Leave Smokey
And
out
then
of it.
take it off the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me would have been what the Red I know would have done. He would have said, okay, you know what? You're never going to do this again. This is because it's meth that you're doing. And you're going to be punished in this way. And we're going to serve everybody that was in there in a silver platter with a nice flower in there and into the a roast like he had on the plane right on the to the FBI. He had just one more
Yeah.
blacklister for free. So
Yeah, I mean,
it's
and if the actor need to bow out or anything like that for some reason, either exile him, or if you really need to take it that far, put a bullet in his head and check the pulse. I mean, throwing him out of the plane draws the direct parallel with the director, and I don't understand that.
and also what we're supposed to think that Denver did with Renard. Because she said, have you
Yeah.
ever been in Scotland?
Do you
Yeah.
think that maybe what he's after is that he thinks that Dembe betrayed him by not killing her?
It could be. I mean, I have no idea, but he thinks it's either Denver knows who Liz did, or Denver didn't follow his orders and killed Renard.
I mean, but both things are excessive to torture the guy with. I mean,
Yes, they are, but it's they're just pushing Red. I mean, he came out. It was a party. He was doing treasures, and now he's into this. He was like super happy, and now we're back into dark Red, and it
yeah.
feels that they have failed, and that may come in the future to explain what snapped, because so far I'm
Yeah.
not seeing it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that.
And that takes us. You have anything else about anybody else in here except, and then we can jump into wrestler.
The only thing I had was the song choice at the end, and this is kind of a good thing, I guess. It was really creepy, but I think it was supposed to be, especially on my rewatch. Because I mean, Every Breath You Take is already kind of a creepy song if you listen to the
Very
lyrics.
creepy.
Like I don't think it was nearly as creepy in the 80s when it came out.
Oh, it
like
was
I don't
creepy.
think that okay.
Yes, it was creepy. Everybody say, oh, what a love song. No, it's not. That's horrible.
No, it's not a love song.
I'll be
That's a
watching
stalker
you.
song.
Yeah. No, I'm not good.
But it was
Creepy.
with the backdrop of Red going where he did with Smokey and the third estate going through the security systems in the homes, all of that, it just seemed very poignant.
Yeah.
And so that's not a knock to it. It was kind of a strange song for a young choir to be singing, but you know, hey. But it was very poignant on that because it goes back to what you said about Red's God complex lately. That it feels like he's got his eye on everybody, and everybody's under a microscope. And if you don't do what Red says,
yeah, they're definitely drawing comparisons there. I guess we have to wait to see what it is. But I mean, all in all, I did like the episode. I liked some aspect of the episode. I didn't like the entirety of it, which is bizarre. I had problems with episode, and then after a while, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I like the episode. I had a very tough time rewatching this episode. Um, that scene in the plane remind me a little of Red in the van when he's
Yeah.
with what's the name of the character, Gerald, and I can't remember
Yeah.
the name of the wife,
The
and
husband and
he's
wife out in the woods.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he's
Same.
like with the, oh my god, and having them sing and they're like terrified. It's the same kind of feeling, and Dembe had the same kind of face, like this is going way too far and I'm out. So that takes us to Wrestler. And Wrestler started this investigation into Katerina Rostova before they had that conversation. So probably when he heard Katerina and he had to give evidence for Red, I have a feeling that he already started reaching out and started investigating. This is not about when Liz told him, hey, you know what?
Well, I mean, when Liz told him that she was dropping it, he went. That's when we saw him call MJ and ask him about Katerina Rostova, and all this was coming
No,
from
but he
MJ.
said, thank you for returning my call. And he told Liz that this started weeks ago.
I guess that's possible. I think he was also lying to Liz. I think he was trying to. But yeah, I don't think that the manifest came from weeks before. I think the manifest came from right then, which is what he had.
But
And
he had
so,
started to investigate.
yeah, possibly. Yeah, so we don't know how long he's been doing it, but it also, he may have seen things about Katerina Rostova linked into his investigations with Red in the beginning, because that's MJ's assumption. Is that, you know, that's why he's looking for Katerina Rostova, is because he's trying to find Reddington. I thought, I think I like MJ. I'm not sure, because I don't know for sure if I can trust him or not, because it is the Blacklist. But
And he was lying to Red. He was doing nothing at his desk.
That's what I actually really liked that. It was funny. I'm walking into this meeting right now as he's like leaned back in his chair.
Yeah, he was a little full of BS, but I like that they, and it brings a very interesting thing about Wrestler. I mean, Wrestler is going about this in the way that Liz should have, but can't because he's emotionally involved. He's methodical, he's precise, and he's going to the right sources. So we have found now Katerina's mom.
Yeah, I have to say though, where was MJ back when Liz was originally looking for Kat? Because she was looking back in season 2. Tom was helping, but I mean, Tom's not going to
Well, the Aurea section was.
Yeah,
gone.
I know, and so I got the impression they were the only people that really knew anything about her, and so.
Well, go. I'm going to have a lot to say about this.
All right, then go for it.
So this is very interesting, and I love that part of the episode. I love that they bring the Aurea has the CIA that the part of the CIA assigned to Russia says that Katerina was a myth as a spy, that she was it was a honey trap, and they just like make one conglomerate of many honey traps, whatever. We know that that's a lie because Peter, the head of the clandestine services, which of course in 1991 he would not have been the head of the clandestine services, he probably was a very high up handler of high profile, knew exactly who Katerina was, and even if he did not know of Liz, he knew enough that there was a child involved because he sent Braxton armed with the house, the fire, and the girl. That's all he had, all the information to find the fulcrum. So that to me always had sounded like Katerina really was not a KGB agent. She was a CIA agent given a burn notice and deny existence like they did in Ilya Surkov. in which the guy said, no, he didn't exist. And if he didn't, he's not CIA. The Gambler, the comic book has the same theme. This guy who was FBI, and he's just denied that he exists. So we've seen this over and over. Tom in Redemption, Leland Bray also got a burn notice and a termination notice. So this really gets a lot of these themes together. And at the end, it doesn't make any sense that Katerina was just purely KGB. I think her identity, Katerina Rostova, was supposed to be KGB, but I think she was a covert CIA agent whose job was to infiltrate the KGB and be the arm then of Peter in creating the cabal to end the Cold War without much blood. So I think that this is all coming together. I like that. I like that they put that in there. And I like that, obviously, MJ got reassigned from the Russia office into whatever office is now. And he was a point guy and couldn't find anything about Katerina.
Could be the reason he's still alive, that if he got reassigned.
Mm-hmm.
Or else he would have been...
the entire agents were all destroyed.
Mm.
Yeah. So I like the guy. I hope that he comes back. And he seems CIA enough.
I'm walking right into a meeting. Come on, yeah. National security, man.
Yeah, well, it reminded me of what Red said to Mira, attracted by treacherous.
Yeah.
So definitely there. So that was very good, and I find it interesting that we're getting now two connections with Katerina's mom. We're getting a Chicago connection and a Long Island connection. And who was our plaid-wearing friend who said that she was going to go to Long Island because he was quiet and she had a friend there?
Jennifer.
Yepper, wearing plaid. So we're getting a lot of this fun connections, and we're getting Chicago. Remember how she was supposed to contact Kate at the beginning? The Emissary Hotel in Chicago.
That's right. I didn't think about that. I was thinking back to young Jacob Phelps being from Chicago.
He did say that he had a brother in Chicago.
His best I remember his records with the his foster records had him out of Chicago.
Okay. Then we also have the connection that, remember that weird line that we had in season 2 when in season 1 when Liz is investigating Craig Keene, that was Christopher Malley, and Dembe comes in there and asks, what color are the walls? And you think, like, why would you put that in there? I mean, that's seconds and doesn't add anything. It doesn't add to the character. It's a stupid comment to make, in order for not for the character, for the writer to use those seconds with that.
Yeah. And
the color of the sky was Chicago skyline.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we getting and where did Red wanted to go for his celebration after getting out of jail? Chicago. Kate said that she had a sister in Chicago. We're getting a lot of Chicago connections, and they're all beginning to make sense. So I love those two things. So that's what I got. Weird episode.
Yeah, it was bizarre. And I hope that there will be a day that I can go back to it and go, hey, I like it better. It makes so much more sense now. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that has potential for, I enjoyed the wrestler bit, with him continuing to dig into Katerina Rostova, but so much of it, so many strange decisions, and only time will tell if they were just freaking weird
or they make sense.
Or they make sense later on. It could just be that these were one-off writers that didn't mesh well. They may never be back. Who knows? Yeah. It doesn't make them bad writers. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, I hope that they seem to have a lot of success with novels. Quick Google of them. They had quite a few novels between them. So, I mean, I'm sure they're decent writers. It just, I wasn't fond of the episode.
it was and you never know. With a Blacklist, you never know. I remember that Chicago skyline comment, and I said, isn't that bizarre? Same as with Liz saying, the color of when Tom says it's grandma's pumpkins, and Tom is like, grandma's what? So, and then you can tie a lot of things in there.
Yeah.
But definitely there was elements that were strange, and I hope they come back.
Yeah. I hope it makes more sense later. I mean, we've got another few episodes this season, and
I'm very excited for the next one.
I'm very excited for the next 3, because the next one is the Third Estate, which looks like it should be very good. And then the one following that is Sam from Tumblr, is her episode, which I'm very excited
the
for.
Brockton College Killers.
It looks really good. I don't know anything about it other than what's been released, and so and that it's hers. So, but it's hers, so I'm excited.
The pictures, the promo pictures look good.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then the same night, following that one is it's the one with Katerina Rostova with Lottie coming back.
And did you see there are some pictures with Dom in the cabin? So, and Red is stalking someone. So, and we see Red in the cabin and Dom in the cabin and Liz there. So, is that how all this come about? I don't know.
We'll see. I'm excited though. The next 3 episodes are going to be very good. I'm very excited for them. But that's all I got. I feel like I went on a bit of a negative run, but it was not my.
But I liked it. I wasn't that negative. It's just some things were weird, and I'm willing to give it a benefit. We never know. I mean, the weirdest stuff comes back, and you go like, that's what happened.
I think I would be more inclined to give it a benefit if these writers had been with the show for a while. Like, if they were part of the staff and had been with the show for a while. Like, I think I would be more and that doesn't negate the fact that it's possible that they'll come back later. I just think I'd give it more of the benefit of the doubt if they'd been with it for a while.
So that's all I got.
Yep, that's what I got too. So you can catch us on YouTube, on SoundCloud, and iTunes, and you can talk to us on Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook.
Yeah, always leave us whatever you want us to talk about, or questions or comments.
Yeah.
And we'll be happy.
Yeah, we're always excited to hear from you guys. We've had a little bit of chatter lately. I've seen someone on SoundCloud a couple of times, someone over on YouTube. We get questions on Tumblr, and there's always the crowd on Facebook, so it's a lot of fun. We love hearing from you guys. You guys are awesome. We wouldn't...
All right. So we'll see you next week, and until then...
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.